I don't know, like, are you interested in talking about Python stuff?
No, we can because it's also part of your process.
I would like to make people more interested in that. It's a very nice way to make curves in Python scipy interpolate. This is an instrument named BPoly. And what it actually does, he gives you an opportunity to draw a curve similar to what you do in tools like Photoshop. You just put, for example, 2 points, the beginning point and the last point, to draw a curve. And you need to add some points to show how to curve your line. So what I give to BPoly is just 4 points.
This is also quite similar to how Tableau does it, only that you need the data identification for it. So hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Viz. Today I have back with me Tanya to talk about two of her really amazing vizes. One on the aging societies, which is basically a map layer with very intense visualizations around it, as well as a favorite of mine, the Game of Thrones interactions, because I'm a fan of the TV series. So over to you, Tanya, to give us a short intro on what you've been up to in the past year.
For half of the year, I was almost inactive in the community because I was more concentrated on work. But then now I'm in search for work again. So I realized that my profile is not updated, and I started creating some vizes that I started but didn't finish. I was working simultaneously on several projects. I kind of create maybe a plan for myself. Like I make this number of, let's say, creative stuff and this number of business stuff to make my profile look the way I want it to look. It's just looks like I've created lots of stuff in a very limited period of time. It's not true.
But this is a strong testament to how much impact your Tableau Public's portfolio is to your career. So anyone who's listening to this podcast, keep your business close to your heart, because I think it really helps a lot. I mean, you're not the only one I talked to that has better opportunities due to the portfolio that they have on their Tableau Public profiles. I would also add to, because I was mentoring some of my mentees from other programs, one of the advice I give them is it might be good to have a variety of business dashboards and creative work, so you can show potential employers what is the range of work and skill sets that you have.
Yeah, I agree. I understand that.
So I think that's a very interesting year that you had, and I'm excited to see what goes beyond the next opportunities that might come your way. So today, I wanted to talk about the aging society stash that you did. I suppose that is done using map layers.
This one was residing with me for quite a long time because I was actually working with pension funds a lot, because I was writing about financial stuff and working with banks, insurance, and pension funds from time to time. So this microeconomy was one of the key topics, especially in Russia, because the problem of aging is very important. They have lots of problems with the population, like not so many children are born, and they're trying to do something with that. I don't know about the pension system in Singapore. I guess in Russia, it kind of takes a lot from Soviet system. It means that it's just very simple. You just take stuff from working age population and give it to the older population. So you are very dependent from how many people you have in your working age population. So this is a huge problem for Russia. And they try to make people shift to more like investment style of life, so that they work. They try to invest some money into pension funds, but the problem is that people don't trust government and banks, because after the 90s, the pension system collapsed, banks collapsed. So people don't believe anything. They just prefer to keep their money under the pillow. Like you see this from the chart, because aging, like everywhere except maybe Africa, right? Beginning from a certain age, a person is not that productive. You see, they cannot work as effectively as young people. Also, there is ageism and so on. And the third thing is that they have health problems. It's the other side of the coin. So you're not only less productive, you need help from the government in terms of medicine. And you have more and more these elderly people everywhere as well. But the most problematic is Europe, Japan, and developed world, where people live longer because of good conditions. Also, they have better conditions of life. They give birth to less children, and they have less working population as the result. So this proportion changes. This is a problem, like for almost every government in the world nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, this is a hot topic because we live in a post-COVID world where people migrate all over the world as well, like over the past 2 decades. And you can see very sharply just from this map layer that Africa has a very high mortality rate. People don't live to very old age. Japan is the huge spike over here. Singapore also has a very high aging society, I would say. So in years to come, my kids will suffer. I'm also very impressed that you did everything in one data set. So you have the sankey diagram and this map all sitting in one data set. So it's like you have different granularity and permutations of the data.
Yeah, it's actually my way of doing stuff. This is how I save some space in the way that is just convenient for me.
Everyone have different processes, but I really like the way that you've created the sankey diagram because most people have a love and hate relationship with sankey diagrams because it's really hard to annotate and very hard to visualize the flow. But I think what you have done here, just adding color to the visual hierarchy, adding this little black bar just next to the flows helps the readability of it. And I think a well-designed sankey diagram really makes a huge difference. I did have a question on how did you create the area chart behind each of the countries?
So I actually use closest approach to calculate the X and Y and translate it into map layers so I could do a little bit more stuff. So I've got like for this area chart, or it can be a bar chart, right? I have actually years, like from 63 to 2023, and I take them with 5-year gap. So I have 11 years or something like that, 11 bars normalized. And I create two parameters, call, gap, and row, just to regulate the space between these points. And so each point is just a line chart, but what I do actually, little trick here, I do 2 lines for each. It's 2 lines because for the area, it's actually a polygon. It's complicated to explain.
I think I understand how you did this, and it's very ingenious. So basically what you're doing is that you are adding a position to each of the area charts based on the maximum. So it starts from the right to the left instead of the left to the right, because you're taking the max and multiplying by the column gap, which is 20 pixels, multiplied by the column number. So for example, US may be column 1, and then Japan will be like column 40 or something all the way to the end. So it moves each of the area charts along x-axis. So similarly to what you said, it's basically a table because you're just multiplying by the gap based on the column number. And I think it's very cool. So it's probably the same as how you did it for the Y, right? Because it's also the column gap multiplied by the row index.
Yes, exactly. So I mean that I understand it like in my brain, but to explain it's just so complicated to say it in simple words.
At the end of the day, Tableau is still X and Y axis. So as long as you can hack that, you can put anything you want on the canvas. And I think one way you have done that, and I've seen this in some of my previous guests, is to, as much as you can, parameterize your calculation. So you have like bar height, column gap, row gap. It makes it a lot easier when you're just trying to experiment how much space do you need between each of the items, how can you expand or condense different things. I think this is a very good process for anyone to adopt because it makes things a lot easier when you are not too sure how the final kind of vis would look like.
Okay, so we can go to something more or less simple. I took some case from Ladatavis. In this way, it's easy. I tried to make a single chart, like going from year to year. It was not looking very nice. And the nicest looking is just a single link sankey. So I like how it actually shows the overall global structure and how dramatically it has changed.
Is there a reason why you chose a 30-year gap?
Initially, it was like from 63 to 23, but I decided that it would be interesting to have this middle point between them. And you see that the most significant change in structure, it actually happened during the last 30 years. And also we see step by step in 63, we have 3 types of population. Aged is the oldest one. Then we have super aged, and now we have kind of ultra aged, which is 28% of 65 plus people and more.
So for context, how do you define super age and ultra age?
I actually took it from one of the articles. It was devoted to, I don't remember exactly. It was either about the UN numbers or World Bank numbers, and it's not a scientifically proved names for something, but it was a way to define these categories. And I just thought that for coloring, it will be better if it is used already by people like economists and so on, than invent something from my head. What I did here differently is I did just labeling. I added labels on the top of the areas. Usually we do place them on both parts of sankey, but in this case, when you have several sankeys going like one by one, it didn't look very well. So I did some extra work in Python. These are all shapes. There is actually quite a simple piece of code that creates any text labels if you want to. I'm doing this in Matplotlib. In most cases, it's excessive, but if you have some creative stuff to do, they can be convenient.
This is perfect. The amount of technical work that goes behind this is tremendous. Let's shift gears a little bit because I'm also very interested to understand how you did the Game of Thrones Radial chart. Because Game of Thrones is one of my favorite TV series,
Really?
even though the ending was quite bad, it's always nice to see Game of Thrones inspired this.
Yeah, the ending was just... So the idea was actually very simple. Initially, I just wanted to make a short network. I was seeking for ways to try different stuff, and I thought that maybe something like movie material will be okay for that. So I found this dataset on GitHub, like Jeffrey Lancaster. I don't know this guy, but he actually did lots of manual work because he watched all the series and he noted when each character appears, disappears, and how many seconds do we see this character and this character together, So I just uploaded the data set. I need to make some preparations. You can do this actually in different ways, but Python really makes it so easy. I created my data set that has links and nodes. Nodes are circles, right? And I have, like, let's call it edges. Edges are for family and for a group, like Aaron, Baratheon, Greyjoy, and blah, blah, blah. So there are 3 layers, actually. I actually don't do densification in Tableau. I don't know, like, are you interested in talking about Python stuff?
No, we can because it's also part of your process.
I would like to make people more interested in that. It's a very nice way to make curves in Python SciPy interpolate. This is an instrument named BPoly. And what it actually does, he gives you an opportunity to draw a curve similar to what you do in tools like Photoshop. You just put, for example, 2 points, the beginning point and the last point, to draw a curve. And you need to add some points to show how to curve your line. So what I give to BPoly is just 4 points.
This is also quite similar to how Tableau does it, only that you need the data densification for it. I think it's probably for you, it's easier to do it in Python and have a ready data set to put it in the Tableau rather than trying to hack that densification and the sigmoid curves in Tableau. I think we have a lot of content view on the Game of Thrones and the aging societies. This both are hot favorites from the community, so I'm sure everyone would have a lot of fun digging into how you go around creating those business. So thank you again, Tanya, for spending time with us today, and we'll see everyone at the next episode. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.